Undercover cops, what are your best "are you freaking kidding me" moments? Viewers edition. Yeah, criminals aren't generally known for being the sharpest people, and sometimes when they think that they're being slick or discreet, they're actually making complete fools of themselves. And sometimes the police aren't too much brighter themselves. Seems a lot of our viewers had first-hand experience with the incredulous moments of crime and our flawed system of law and order. Let's hear about some of these encounters, shall we? Story 1. I was driving back home down a back road. The road had been recently paved over. Because of this, the road is completely black with no striped line center divider and no reflectors. There is no street lighting, and there are very few homes that are mostly further back in the property, so their front porch lighting does not reach the road. It is a cloudy night, so the only thing lighting the road are my headlights. I can barely tell where the road ends and the off-road begins, to the point that I'm mostly guessing. From a distance, I see a car turn into the road coming my direction. The car has high beams on, and only one headlight is working. I'm a blinded guy, so as we pass each other on the road, my eyesight recovers. I look at my rear view, cursing at the car under my breath, and then I see it take a U-turn. My mind was telling me that this is probably bad news. I can see that the vehicle is actually getting closer, but by that time, I had already been slowing down, stopped at the stoplight, and reached the main road. I quickly look both ways. All clear, no traffic. So I do a heavy acceleration. The main road is 55 miles per hour, compared to the back road's 30 miles per hour, so I knew I was okay to accelerate without worrying about going over the limit. The car followed me without stopping. A rolling stop. Tires never completely stopped rotating at the stop sign. Then the lights come on. The cop, of course, goes through the usual license and registration, where you headed spiel, and a second patrol unit pulls up behind. This is standard precautionary practice for all traffic stops in the middle of the night where I'm from. They instruct me to step out of the car. Obviously, this means they're suspicious that I may be under the influence. I comply. And of course, I'm a klutz and just happened to stumble on a small ditch hidden by the grass. They ask if I'd been drinking. I tell them I don't drink, smoke, or do any drugs. The cop then pulls out his flashlight to shine it at my face, and I instinctively close my eyes. He asked why I was driving in the middle of the road. I think he was attempting to get me to acknowledge wrongdoing, as well as get me comfortable to open my eyes while talking. Keeping my eyes closed, I responded. I told him the above-mentioned description of the road conditions. I also told him I had astigmatism. The high beam from his vehicle rendered me blind as we passed. I couldn't see his car or the road for a few seconds, and didn't have full vision until 10 seconds had passed. He then asked me why I sped at the intersection. Again, a leading question wanting me to admit to speeding. I corrected him. I told him not to speed. I accelerated to the speed limit of the main road as fast as I was able to. He then asked why I did that. So I asked him what he would have done if a vehicle with a single working headlight suddenly did a U-turn to tail him in the middle of the night. He looks at his patrol car, just realizing the headlight. He then tells me that he will be issuing a warning for driving. I ask if his buddies will be issuing him a warning for the headlight. He isn't above the law and is responsible for checking that the patrol unit is road safe prior to operating it. He sheepishly looks at the ground. Then he looks back at me and tells me to have a safe ride home as he hands me back my registration papers. No ticket, no warning. Story 2. Not a cop, but 20 years ago when I was 14, there was a cop that hated kids, and hated kids who rode bicycles even more, and so loved to harass kids. He would blatantly go to the same spot and fall asleep for several hours while on the job. Well, one day I had enough of him harassing me when I would ride past to get to dirt jumps. So the really stupid fact is he would park right at the top of the hill and kind of hidden going up, but if you knew the spot, you could potentially see the shadow. So I fake crashed my bike, basically on purpose, hit the front of his police car and fell over on my own, not going fast at all to make it seem like he hit me. Well, fun fact, I am double jointed, so I can dislocate my arm and put my arm in weird places while still being able to use it normally, even dislocated, so I got up screaming my head off, with my arm hanging backwards. It scared the crap out of him so much because he thought I broke my arm on his car while he was sleeping behind the wheel. He ran out of his car, freaking out, trying to figure out what to do, because turns out he was not even in the area he was supposed to be patrolling, and if he called for an ambulance, he would get fired, and he was freaking out. He was fat as heck, and it was funny seeing a 400-pound officer running around in circles like a chicken without a head. I swung my arm back into its socket and said, "Oh, it's fine. No harm, no foul." He got in his car and drove off and never returned to that area. He freaked out so much, and no one said anything about a Karen cop harassing kids in the area ever again. I still laugh about it today. Story 3. Not a cop, but I encountered such an incident live when I was still learning how to drive. My city is neighboring an affluent local council for upper-class rich people. A local council is an independent municipal unit with over 2,000 people, but not large enough to be declared a city. And by neighboring, I mean you drive near the edge of my city, take a turn, and you're in the local council. Villas everywhere, lots of tree lanes on the sides of the roads, quiet streets, lots of roundabouts. Driving speed allowed is 40 miles per hour tops. So my driving instructor regularly took the newer students there to get used to driving before tackling the busier streets of my city. One lesson, I'm entering a roundabout to turn left on about 20 miles per hour or so, and I notice a police car coming straight in front of me and stopping before entering the roundabout to let me through. Since I'm already entering the roundabout, the police car have to wait until I pass them. Before I get past the right turn, 1/4 of the roundabout, a car zooms from the right, going a lot faster than 40 miles per hour, cuts me off. My driving instructor had to emergency brake, or the other car would have crushed straight into us, and speed the roundabout right in front of the police car. The police officers took a moment to see that we are unharmed, turned the sirens on, and chased the moron. My instructor took a few moments to make sure I'm fine, and then we continued the lesson like nothing happened. I turned left, as I've originally intended, and after about 3 minutes driving, I saw the speeding car have been pulled over by the police officers who were in the process of ticketing the driver. They gave us a wave as we drove by. Story 4. Years ago at a Safeway, I always had trouble dealing with Safeway employees screwing up my order constantly because they did not know how to use a register because of lack of training. I ended up having to go to the customer service desk for the 5th time in 7 days and told the woman behind the counter that if they had proper training, this stuff would stop happening. I got banned from the store for being rude to the store manager. All I said was if the employee actually got trained, this problem would stop happening. Customer service desk had to deal with fixing orders constantly. Well, less than 2 weeks after I got banned for life, the store manager was acting like she usually did and started screaming at a customer in the parking lot. Then she punched the customer who was with his brother. His brother was a police officer who was still wearing his uniform, but was off duty, going home, but stopped to pick up a few items from the store first. He then had to call his office to come pick up the dumb witch who punched his brother, who was a police cadet, basically an officer in training. Turns out the witch was drunk off her butt and had been drinking while on the job. She got arrested for assaulting a police officer and attacking an officer in training. I heard about what happened from the police officer who arrested the witch who attacked his brother, and he told me that if I went back there, it would not be illegal because the person who banned me is the real problem. But I still never went back for over 10 years, and then stopped going there again because they still are run by complete moronic dumb butts. Story 5. About 20 years ago, I used to run a local drug trafficking ring, small stuff like marijuana, and not even in that large of a quantity. It's a fairly crime-free town in general. When walking home down an alleyway, I often take a car, speed around, and start driving down the alleyway towards me, clearly attempting to run me over. I know I can't reach the other end of the alleyway in time, so I maneuver myself below the fire escape of the building next to me. As the car gets close, I turn away and push my feet out behind me to absorb some of the force of the car, so it pushes me up into the air where I can grab the ladder and sweep my legs up as the car passes narrowly underneath. It's only as the car passes under me that I see the police light on the back shelf inside the car still unlit. I later found out as I'm getting treatment for my poor pair of sprained ankles that the cop that tried to end my life was a recent transfer from America. This was in the UK, by the way. I don't know what cop shows this nutcase had watched as a child, but as a general rule, you don't try to run over a criminal when they have no escape. What the heck? I didn't hear of the cop after that, so I'm guessing he had repercussions for his reckless actions. This one is interesting, and seemingly the first one of the bunch to be submitted by an actual criminal. Police brutality has been a hot topic in the US for quite a while, but yeah, in theory, they are meant to use non-lethal force wherever possible to subdue their criminals. But reading this story, it definitely seemed excessive to try to run down this guy in his cruiser. It's not like real life is like superhero movies where you can totally obliterate your enemies, but there's no gruesome injuries or fatal consequences because you have to keep it PG-13. This cop needs to show some restraint and be more tactical in their approach. Story 6. Another one I have. My brother and I are driving somewhere, headed home, when a car blaring music pulls up beside us, thinking he's some bad butt dude. Dancing all over the place, just getting into it. At this point, both my brother and I are laughing because he looks stupid. He sees us and thinks he's cool as crap, holds a joint out the window. Mind you, the town I live in, the cops will stop you for looking stupid at them. The guy is still going at it, dancing and holding the joint out the window, thinking he's the most hard dude there is. Now, about this time, we both notice the completely marked cop car that pulls up behind him, and my brother and I are like, yeah, dude, you are so cool, keep it up. And wouldn't you know it, the cop lights up. That was probably one of the best laughs I've had in years. A time for me, though, was when it was a motorcycle rally, and there were cops on motorcycles there, too. As I'm driving by, I forget I have both my windows down, and scream, oh crap, Chips is here. Man, I got the dirtiest stare that day from them. They just gave me a warning and to keep traffic flowing. Story 7. We are on the other side. Friend and I were speeding. We just finished the closing shift in a supermarket, and it was 11:30 p.m. in a rural area. Didn't put anyone in danger but ourselves and the wildlife. Well, at an intersection where we both slowed down a bit to make sure there wouldn't be any traffic, he got pulled over in front of me by an unmarked police car. I slow down some more as I pass them, checking out if they want me to stop too, but they ignore me. Turns out there was some poachers in the area, hunting deer or something, and his car matched the description. After they checked his trunk and believed his explanation where he's coming from and going to, helped that we had our store shirts on with the logo still on them, they let him go with a warning to drive a bit slower. Well, while I'm already at home waiting for him to text me what happened, he gets pulled over a second time by another unmarked cop car. Really his you gotta be kidding me evening. Story 8. Mixing your drinks in your mouth is indeed pretty good sight from alcoholism. I have a few weird interactions with cops, but not so bad. I have an Audi URS4 with about 600 horsepower, and I was thinking that I will beat that one Evo, but it was just the cheapest forward poopy car that had the same tapes that Evo has. The dude lost so bad to me, and he was so angry from that he called the cops and was tailgating me. Cops just laughed at him. One time I was at the lights, and when green turned to me, and I was going, an unmarked cop car almost drove in front of me and was super near to collision. Cops was blaming me from that, and they said that they was going after one car, but I was only car there, and they didn't have any cop lights on, and I told them that, and they was just, be more careful next time. And I was like, what the frick? I didn't do anything wrong. Story 9. My brother's mate had a little turbo sports car when they were in their late teens. They were driving home from a party around midnight, and there weren't many cars on the road. They pull up at a set of lights, and this car pulls up beside them and stares at them nonstop. When the light goes green, they accelerate to get some distance between them. The other car starts chasing them, and they are freaking out. After about 20 minutes of being chased through local streets, they pull up at a police road stop. They got out and ran to the police as the other car slammed on its brakes behind them. Turns out the other car was an off-duty cop who thought they stole the car. They were let go with an apology. Story 10. Not a cop. Disclosure, I have spina bifida, 2 vertebrae in a C shape instead of an O, but can walk okay. But after my night shift, I was walking home. A cop stops me. He asks if I went to the bar. He was a city cop and should have known that my job closed at 1 and everyone would be out at about 2. It was 2:20. Plus I had my uniform on. He said I was wobbly. The dirt path through the grass I was walking was wavy, and I was following it. And having SB, my balance is not great. He asked if I had any identifying marks. I pulled my pants down halfway down my butt, lifted my shirt and showed him my scar. Got away with a half moon. What did you guys think of that hiccup that I left in there? It was not improvised, it was just a mistake that I decided to leave in, especially as I read on and realized that it kind of fit the scene if the OP was being mistaken for being drunk. Of course, if you get the hiccups when you're drunk, it's said to be you're Disney drunk, because that's how they used to depict being drunk in the old-timey Disney movies, at least back when it was allowed, in a family-friendly way. Story 11. Several of these reminded me of a story in a book. It doesn't quite fit, but some policemen arrested a drug dealer at this place of business. While they're finishing up, two guys walk right between marked police cars, past uniformed officers, and ask to buy drugs. They did a fake deal, arrested them, then more guys showed up. They made 12 more arrests that night. Best impromptu sting operation I've ever seen. They hid the marked cars and uniforms after the second group. Where's a cop when you need one? Right here. Glorious. Tip my hat for the finger guns. Please leave your stories in the comments. I'd love to make a video of them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.